see, hopefully it's not. There we go. Move that up a little bit. That way I can monitor microphone levels. Yeah, it's been a while since I got on Elite Dangerous here. Just wanted to continue my trip back to the bubble here since I left the bubble for the system lost to do the engineer missions there. So if I can even remember how to play this, so Galaxy map. So one of the reference points I typically use is Robigo. That still might be too far away. Yeah, it's too far away to plot, I think. Yep. Can I get like somewhere close to it though? No, I'll have to use go a little bit further out from it first. Yeah, I'm like way out there. Might be able to map there for now. Like how the system actually takes like a long time. He's starting to peak there. Do that down a little bit, do that down a little bit. Yeah, I like how the system takes this long to do it because I'm so far out. Because Lost, I think, was like 24,000 light years away from the bubble. Or I was like off screen for a little bit. So I have to see if the built-in navigation in the game actually likes to use jet cone boost. Like sometimes it doesn't because of the issue of the jet cone boost and how the game navigates using it. Is it doesn't like to go out of the way at all. So when you navigate using a jet cone boost enabled on the map navigator in the game, it won't use jet cone boost unless they're like directly in line with I didn't even pay attention to what type of star it is too.
Fuel scooping.
But unless it's like directly in line with like where you're navigating anyway, it won't even suggest like the jet cone boost.
Fuel scooping complete. Frameshift drive charging.
So the ship I got currently is Asp Explorer.
2, 1.
The way I have it outfitted right now is it has a jump range of about 30 light years, give or take. It's not the best that I've seen, but it gets the job done. Like, even if you have a jump range of like 60 years or light years or something, it still takes forever to make a trip like this. I have no idea what kind of star this is. Maybe I should pay attention more. Okay, it's one that can fuel scoop. Only thing about the Asp Explorer I don't like, because I had a Dolphin before, and now I have like a Orca or a Beluga. That's my money maker ship. Those ships, the passenger ships seem to do a lot better in heat management than
Frameshift drive charging.
than these Explorer class ships.
4,
The
3,
heat management on this thing isn't nearly as good as the Dolphin that I had. Like, you could literally like scoop a star and not even like create any distance from said star, and you can just start a jump. And it's like, meh, you might hit like 80%, but it's like, and these stars, if they're scoopable, I don't like to get that close to the, or I don't like to max out the fuel scoop because there's so many flares, it's hard to avoid them. And for some reason, Market Connector won't fire up for me. I think I have to update it. So sometimes I just use that to see like if it's a relatively like new star system in its discovery path. And sometimes I'll go on my way and run the FSS scanner on that case, but it's like I have no idea if these star systems.
Frameshift drive
Or
charging.
have actually been discovered before or not. I probably could run the discovery scanner. Keep forgetting to though. A red dwarf star, I think that's one you can scoop. I have to study back up on it
3,
again.
2, 1, engage.
I'm using an old school stick if anyone's curious. It's a Saytech ST290 Pro. Still works pretty good, and I bought this thing like 10 years ago.
System scan
More than that
complete.
actually, because I was in high school when I bought this. Never really actually used it. Like I used it occasionally for Flight Simulator, but other than that, like I had Flight Simulator 2004. That's how old this thing is.
Fuel scooping complete.
Yeah, it's only really one, so I think that's counting the star that I just scooped. So pretty much I discovered this entire
Frameshift drive charging.
or this entire solar system already. The galaxy, like that's the whole map of this game.
4, 3,
I don't know, a little bit hot.
1, engage.
You know, I hit that a little bit early. 60% is not bad though.
Fuel scooping.
Just seems weird every star I'm hitting is fuel scoopable.
Fuel scooping complete.
And there's no neutron stars, that just seems odd to me. Did my settings not? No? Fastest route, jet cone boost. That is strange. Very strange.
Frameshift drive
Heat's
charging.
good. Red dwarf, those are scoopable.
Four, 3, 2, 1, engage.
I just like to make sure I always have a full tank though, because like I always get trapped in like a
Fuel
segment where you
scooping
get like
complete.
all brown doors, so you can't scoop those. Or those stars that look like they're scoopable even though they aren't, the class T Tauri stars or whatever they're called.
Frameshift drive charging. Four, three, two, one. Engage.
Have to remember to pull the throttle down. It doesn't automatically reset. So then it starts going full speed through the star. Or into the star. Doesn't really matter. And like I always do, never pay attention. Okay. Fuel scoop, yes.
Fuel scooping.
Like I started out, like this game, like as far as exploration, like I had the exploration part pretty good. I'm still not good enough at combat to be effective, so like anyone can own
Fuel
me in
scooping
combat.
complete.
That's why I usually play private games. At least for right now. Maybe if I practice combat more and get better at that, I might be able to do it. But like right now, like being in private and doing exploration, like all I encounter pretty much are pirates. And pretty much with pirates, it's like you just have to outfit your ship with as many heat-seeking missiles and angry
System scan
cannons as possible.
complete.
And you just spam them with that stuff, and
Frameshift
typically
drive
they'll fall
charging.
off of you once they see all those heat seekers launch. It's like they'll run away. They'll be like, "I'll get you next time." And it's like, yeah, sure you will." Not with this many heat seekers.
2, 1.
But of course, I did get destroyed by pirates like twice, I think. Of course, for like the first 2 weeks I had the game, I didn't die at all. Then I started to get cocky, like, oh no, it's not, I'm that good, and it's like, oh no. So I got killed by a pirate like once or twice. One time I was doing passenger missions between Robeagle and Sothis, or you go into Sothis, you can do like the passenger missions where you take them to Sirius atmospheric, so you can make a lot of money doing that.
Fuel scooping complete.
But it's like, at least you could, like, 2 months ago, I, like, stopped playing this game for a little while. But it's like, yeah, I did one where it was, like, illegal to do, and
Frameshift drive
typically
charging.
when you're trying to smuggle, people in there illegal into a port that won't take them, like you can use two methods. You can either use the speed method, that's where you like try to get into the mail slot as fast as possible
3,
to where they
2,
can't get a lock on to scan you,
engage.
or you can run in silent, and as your ship heats up, when you're running in silent mode, once your ship gets up to 50 or 60%, your heat signature gets high enough to where they can still scan you. So what you typically do is you run in silent, but then when your heat starts to climb, you launch a heat sink. And like sometimes not even doing silent and just launching the heat sink will be able to confuse them enough to where they can't get a lock on
Fuel
you.
scooping.
But if you do running silent and the heat sink, I haven't been caught yet. Well, I started doing the running silent, and then I realized that I forgot to equip my ship with a heat sink.
Fuel scooping complete.
Hit that 50 or 60% threshold, they get a lock on me, then all of a sudden, like, it just comes up on the screen, like, illegal passenger detected, and then they just start shooting at me. Like, I actually got out of the base, like pretty far, and almost got to the point where I could like make the jump out of there, and the countdown got to like 2 or 3, and it's like then they blew me up. I'm like, almost had it. Almost survived that one. But yeah, if you get in a fight with the leading cartels at the
Frameshift drive
base
charging.
there, it's like you're probably not going to survive it. And in the private game there, I play with one of my friends. His game name is Gunrunner,
3, 2,
and
1.
like
Engage.
it spawned me like 60 or 70 light years away. I'm in this dolphin that has a jump range of like 17 light years and no fuel scoop. So like I make it about halfway there, and Gunrunner had to come out with fuel limpets and like rescue me from the prison dock to the Robe ecosystem there. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Fuel scooping.
I'm usually more daring with the fuel scoops if I'm closer to home.
Fuel
So I
scooping
know I can
complete.
like dock a station, and then I can get my ship repaired at the station. Repairers work a little bit differently when you get out of the bubble though.
Frameshift drive charging.
Oh yeah, I'll have to see how my AFMU is doing. But pretty much you have to collect supplies for AFMUs and to be able to make limpets if you run out of repair limpets. Repair limpets repair your hull. The AFMU repairs your modules. So if your modules start to get damaged, like when you do the jet cone boost jumps, it actually damages your frame shift drive. So once that starts malfunctioning, your ship will emergency drop out, and that typically does it at about the 80% mark. Sometimes up to 83, sometimes down to like 78 I've been able to get before it starts doing that. But it'll start doing emergency drops, and that will in turn damage your hull if that happens too often or when you're going too
Fuel
fast.
scooping complete.
So like it would be catastrophic. Like I'm full throttle right now. It'd be catastrophic if I had a dropout happen right now, because I'm close enough to the star to have some heat build up to where it's trying to build the charge to get back into like the super cruise mode. It might overheat my ship.
System scan complete.
So that means the orbital bodies are so few
Frameshift drive charging.
and close enough to where just doing the system scan was enough to be like, or just doing the discovery scanner was enough to be like, hey, you discovered everything.
4,
If they're further out and there's more of them, you have to use FSS at the very least to discover the planets. Or maybe if you get into a system that's good enough for it, maybe I'll jump into FSS and do a little bit more of that. I think I have a video on my channel where I show some tips of the FSS. Like, it's amazing to me, like, the amount of tutorial videos I watch on YouTube in this game, and the people doing these tutorial videos don't seem to know about the full system scan or the full spectrum
Fuel
scanner.
scooping complete.
Like, it's such a handy tool in the game that comes on all the ships that have the advanced discovery suite, I think it is. So pretty much every ship in the game except for the small class of fighters, I think. But all of your discovery ships, and I think all of your passenger liners will have the full spectrum scanner.
Frameshift drive charging.
But actually, this would be a good system to show it. So essentially, get slowed down enough to where it'll let me use it. So what confused me was like, people were saying, it's the apostrophe to get into it. But, like, the icon kind of looks like it could be like the icon, or the button that shares it with the tilde key, but it's actually the apostrophe button, the single quote. So you press that, it goes into this mode, and you do have to use your keyboard and mouse, I think. Yeah, it doesn't seem to let me use my joystick. So you go around and you'll see that there's these bubbles, like one right there, and then like this one here. When you start to see those waves around the circles, that means you have it tuned close to what that object is. So you use your arrow keys to adjust the spectrum, usually. Oh, no. Or no, it's A and D. It was the arrow keys, I thought. So you use A and D, and it slides up and down the spectrum. So it's right about there is that one when it shows the solid rings. And you can go in there, and that's the asteroid belt. So down at the bottom right hand corner, it tells you where you are on the spectrum. So as I get into this area of the spectrum, you got metal rich bodies, high metal content, rocky bodies, rocky ice world, or icy bodies, rocky ice. You get earth like worlds right about there, ammonia worlds, water worlds, gas giants. There's probably more in between though, but that's all I tuned it for. Yeah, so you pretty much just go around the system. I might not do this entire one, but you can click. Once you get on a ring, you can click, then it'll zoom in. Or if there's like more items or objects, planets in its vicinity, it'll give you like a double ring like that. And typically, like, so when you get that double ring, it means there's one near it, and sometimes it gives you, yeah, like here we're in another step zoom. So there we have that one, another gas giant. You got these bubbles, those are something different. So they're not higher on the gas giant spectrum, so these look like rocky bodies. But yeah, it doesn't look like we have anything really good in this system, so I might just skip over it for now. Because I'm just trying to make my way back. But essentially, once you do that, you can go into the system map, and you can see if these planets have been discovered already. So actually, it looks like this might be a brand new system, so I might get credit for discovering this. Because normally, like in that darker box there, where it says a planet name, like down below it'll say discovered by so-and-so, like Commander so-and-so. So maybe I should discover this entire system here. So, not there. And it's something you get better at as you go along. Like, it is a little bit tricky at first. Icy body, no more bubble there. Another icy body. Actually, I haven't played since they released the Star Carrier update. At least get more planets than I did. We got this whole area here. Close. There we go. Rocky body. See, eye of the tiger. No, not that rocky. zoom out, no more bubble there, even if I... Nope. You don't get the squiggles on the rings if it's stuff that's already been discovered. I kind of do like a zigzag pattern if it looks like it's not along an existing orbit path. So that one actually was. So maybe I should have followed orbit paths first. So there's ones near it. I just don't have it tuned to the right. There we go. Looks like there's a whole cluster here. Cause there's like one tutorial I was watching where the guy's like showing how to do the engineer missions in Lost there. And he's like, oh yeah, you gotta find this distress signal and you have to like pretty much fly everywhere like around this planet to get close enough to where your discovery scanner hits it. The entire time I'm just thinking, I'm like, dude, why don't you just use a full spectrum scanner? So I was curious, I'm like, maybe there's a compelling reason of why he can't use it for that mission. And it's like, so I decided when I did the mission, I'm like, I'm gonna try the full spectrum scanner instead of just flying a donut around this planet. And sure enough, I pick up the distress signal right away with the full spectrum scanner. So maybe I'll see if I can find that video and then like send the guy a link to my previous video where I show like how to use this thing. Maybe he'll find it handy for when he does future tutorial videos. But you can use this scanner to pick up distress signals, planets, like it picks up everything, practically. Stars. So it's like when you get like this end of the spectrum, the low end, that's where you get into like your distress signals and all that.
System scan complete.
So I just discovered the solar system without having to fly towards every unidentified signal. I think we might have some discoveries. If not this entire system. I'm not seeing any that have been discovered yet. Sweet. That's going to be worth like probably around 200,000 credits. Yeah, if you discover systems that have gas giants, a mixture of like metal-rich worlds, icy bodies, and rock bodies. It's I think it runs around like 200,000 or 300,000 credits for that one single system. If you get like an Earth-like world though in a system, you might actually get around like 600 to 700,000 credits. I've actually seen some of them go for like 1,000,000 credits before. If you get like a Earth-like world, or sometimes even two. Like the person who discovered I think the system is Sothis, where Sirius Atmospherics is. Like there's 2 Earth-like worlds in that system. They must have gotten like 1.5 million credits for it. Yeah, it's just crazy that there's 2 Earth-like worlds in that one system, but yeah, that's one way you can use to speed up discoveries. And once you hit with the FSS, you can go here, and it actually tells you too, like what the planet has. So it doesn't really tell you if it's landable here or not, but you can check in like the side console if it's landable, but it's like, so this like tells you what materials the planet has. So you go back here, you go into the panel here. It's like any planet, that blue icon, I can't use my pointer to show you, but on the planet itself, that blue icon, it kind of looks like an open box, kind of. It's hard to explain it. It's actually a spaceship with a landing gear pointing towards the ground. You can see it on that icon above the one that I've selected, above where it shows the asteroid. Yeah, that blue icon means that you can land on it, and if you actually select it, and here it says that the planet's suitable for landing on that first blue line there. But if there's any planets that aren't landable, like this one doesn't have that icon, so it says no for suitable for landing. This one has the icon, so it says yes for suitable landing. So you can easily tell if a planet's suitable for landing by looking in this side panel here. So you can lock your destination to it if you want to land on it as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're discovering and you need a certain material and all you have are SRVs. You can mine planets, I think, but you need like a mining laser. And
Frameshift drive charging.
you use a mining laser and then collection limbits, or if you're really good at it, you can open your cargo scoop and like kind of scoop out the things that come out.
2, 1, engage.
Yeah, when I first started, it's like someone was like, "How do you get this good so quick?" And it's like, a lot of it was because I was born and raised in small town country. We learned how to drive cars when we were 16 in this area, because essentially that's like the only way to get around.
Fuel scooping complete.
There's buses around here, like mass transit buses, but they're very small buses. And like a lot of times they'll fill up it with a very few people that actually ride them. So you can't really depend on them like you can like with buses and trains in the cities. So here you turn 16 years old.
Frameshift drive charging.
You essentially like, it's common practice for parents to just take their kids up to the DMV, take their permit test as soon as they turn 16, get a permit.
4, 3,
About 6 months later, because if you get your license within 6 months, I think, of the permit, at least in my state, New York State, if you get it within 6 months of the permit, like it's a restricted license, then once those 6 months have passed, you actually have to apply for like the exemption and all that. It's more of a pain. So typically what we would do is we'd wait more than the 6 months, then take the road test for the license, then you get the full license, with the exception of you'll get an M class on the license, which means you're a minor on the license. And what that typically means is you can't drive after 7 or when it gets dark out, whichever comes first depending on the time of the year. But a lot of us would actually risk it, me and my friends, sometimes depending on what we were doing. Sometimes going to the movie theater, stuff like that. But it's kind of like a rite of passage, like around here, to learn how to operate a car at a young age. So I'm 28 now, so 12 years of driving experience. Man, time flies. But it's like actually a lot of driving a car on the road applies to operating spaceships in this game. Like even some of the maneuvering, even though you're maneuvering more on a 3-dimensional level instead of 2
Fuel
dimensions.
scooping.
Whereas vehicles typically don't lift off the ground during low speed maneuvering. If they do, you're doing something
Fuel
very
scooping
wrong,
complete.
or you're like very good at. There's no in between. Especially newer cars, how much more complicated they got. And like I had like a Jeep Grand Cherokee, an old one. It was one of the old ones that still had solid
Frameshift
axles,
drive
both
charging.
front and back, or live axle front. They weren't solid axles. The Jeep people would correct you on that one if you tried to call them solid axles, but essentially the axles went
4,
straight
3,
left
2,
and right,
1.
and then the suspension attached to them. So the entire axle itself was swung on the suspension. More modern style vehicles use independent suspension typically. So you actually have like the A-arms coming down and the springs attached to those, and you use CV axles to actually spin the wheels. They're a more complicated system, but there's with coil springs there's less to go wrong. So the issue with like especially
Fuel
the front
scooping
end
complete.
on like suspension systems using coil springs and a live axle front end is that the coil springs don't center the axle naturally, so they actually depend on something called a track bar. So if you ever have that track bar go loose, and I had this happen once when I had my Jeep, like if the ends were down the track bar where it attaches to where there's some play, and then you have something else go wrong, like a tie rod end or something like that, you'll hit a bump sometimes and like your wheels like pretty much start doing this, and it shakes the vehicle and almost shakes the steering wheel out of your hand.
1. Engage.
And that's just on the Jeeps, relatively lightweight vehicles. If you have like a heavy duty truck that has that happen, it's much more violent because those trucks weigh like a ton more pretty much. So that's why I say like if someone has a vehicle, like your more modern vehicles are gonna have like a suspension system like that, or like your Jeep Wranglers, or some heavy duty trucks are still using them, like
Fuel scooping
the
complete.
Ford Super Duty, and I think the Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500s are still using live axle front ends. Just make sure that track bar's like in good shape, or the ends of it. If you can identify like
Frameshift drive
what
charging.
component your track bar is underneath your vehicle, like you can just every once in a while like reach under there, give it a shake. If there's any play in there, you're in for a rude awakening if you have any other loose parts under there.
3,
It's not going to be a fun ride.
engage.
Because yeah, occasionally like tie rod ends can give out pretty quick to where they'll go from no play at all to like having enough play to cause issues in like less than 200 miles.
Fuel scooping.
So like yeah, if that happens and your track bar is loose, which is what happened with me. I was like driving down the highway, I hit like an expansion gap on a bridge, and it's like all of a sudden my steering wheel just
Fuel scooping complete.
it's like, oh, how am I supposed to drive like this? If it was more violent, it would be like that Tim Hawkins song there. My arms are broken.
Frameshift drive charging.
Having a joystick helps in this game too. Like, I had a hard time with a keyboard and mouse. Then I realized I had this joystick at my parents' house.
4,
I'm
3,
like, might as well dig it out, see if it still works. It still works apparently. Using it right now.
system scan complete.
Also see how this bit rate works, so I turned it up to 6,000.
Fuel
4,000 wasn't
scooping complete.
quite cutting it for the face cam. So I do have 20,000, but I don't want to jack it up too much because if anyone actually does tune in live, I'm not a partner, so transcoding is not enabled unless YouTube works differently. So even though my upload line's 20 megabits, I don't feel like cranking out to 18 megabits if I don't have to. You know that would be really good quality for people watching, but you occasionally still have some people on satellite that get throttled if they use over a certain amount a month. So they might get throttled down to like 3 megabits per second.
2, 1.
And it's like, or occasionally you'll have people on DSL. Like, yeah, when I was up at my parents' house, like, their DSL was limited to like 3 megabits per
System
second.
scan complete.
And that was like the fastest DSL they could get to. Like, my download line currently is 400 megabits per second. But if it doesn't go against the terms and conditions of my internet provider, I might actually see if my neighbor wants to chip in if I get gigabit. Then I could do like a Wi-Fi beam to their house.
Frameshift drive charging.
See, that's a star you can't scoop. I know that for a fact because I've tried to scoop those, and if you go into the side panel, it'll say it's not scoopable. That's one of the main things about
3,
when you play this game.
1.
Is the first thing you want to do is learn how to maneuver the ship. Once you get ship maneuvering done and out of the way, then you want to make sure you know how all the panels work in the galaxy map and all that. If you've used like the galaxy map, if you use GPS applications in the past or something like that, you're not going to have too much of an issue with it. And actually, like, if you concentrate on each facet of the game and learn how to do that, you can learn how to play this game relatively quick. It's just people don't realize that they should isolate each facet of the game. Then they try to learn everything all at once, and it's overwhelming when you try to do that. So basic ship maneuvering. Some people say you should like learn how to dock and all that.
2,
That's somewhat subjective, but if you want to go along in the future better, like when you get larger and larger ships, you do want to learn how to dock, but if you plan on flying small ships the entire time, if you sacrifice a 2 slot to put the advanced docking computer
fuel scooping.
in it, you're probably not going to suffer that much. But even if you do that, some of the larger ships like only have like 3s, and if you take up the 3 slot for your advanced docking computer, you'll probably suffer more for that.
Fuel scooping complete.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're like, oh, I'm just going to use a docking computer all the time, or use auto dock all the time, the bigger ships don't come with it. And the reason being, like, the automatic docking doesn't seem to work that well the bigger ships you have. So my friend Gunrunner there, he has a Beluga for his money-making ship,
Frameshift drive charging.
and he put a docking computer in. He's like, I'm not gonna learn how to dock because it's complicated. Well, when he goes into the mail slot of like a lot of stations, it rubs its belly going in. It's like the docking computer doesn't know how to compensate for larger ships because they probably programmed them with some leeway or probably didn't get them that accurate because they're not meant to be used when you get that advanced in the game to have that big of a ship. And it does make somewhat sense, but and it's probably hard to program them to be that accurate though to not hit. But I mean, you watch like the AI Belugas go in and out and they don't have a problem, but so it doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult to me.
Fuel scooping complete.
But it kind of makes sense to me to where they'll be like, you should be off your training wheels by now if you own a Beluga. So I just learned how to dock.
Drive charging.
I actually did the tutorial because I can't do it right now, I don't think. Maybe I can.
4,
I have to figure out tabs and stuff again.
engage.
But there's an option when you go in the right hand panel, you can do the tutorial missions. And if you mess up on those, like there's no like, real game repercussions for messing up in those. So if you want to learn how to dock, I suggest start with that. Because if you like really mess up to where the AI starts attacking you,
Fuel scooping.
that would be the best way to do it.
Fuel scooping complete.
But yeah, basic maneuvering, yeah, like I said, docking somewhat subjective. But because you can't use your auto docking to land on planets, if you decide to take that route in your exploration to be able to land on planets with SRVs, then you'll want to learn how to maneuver the ship on a planet. I made that mistake when I first got the aspects. I'm like, yes, SRVs, like I can get SRVs for this thing.
2, 1.
So I start hurtling towards this planet here, not realizing that once you get in the gravitational field, it's really hard to slow down unless you level off first. So I'm trying to slow down, and all of a sudden, just not realizing how close to the ground I am, I just like smash right into the ground, like face first in this ship, and it takes a tumble. Like
Fuel
somehow correct it just off the surface of the planet with like 49% of the hull left. I'm like, I really thought I was gonna die. Somehow I milked it out. The ship survived. I got the ship repaired at the nearest station. Life was good. But it's like, yeah, when you're coming into a planet, once you drop out of the frame shift drive, you want to start leveling off and kind of going across the surface. So whatever target you're trying to land on the planet, you want to kind of go towards that in a leveling off position, not necessarily straight down at it. So you can level down for a little while. If you have a target pre-selected though, it's easier because as you drop out of Super Cruise,
3,
it'll go into a mode called glide, where the ship will like moderate its own speed as you're going down towards your target. Like if it's a planetary base, it'll moderate its own speed and it'll slow down automatically to the point where you can slow it down yourself. But if you don't have that target or base to go for it,
system scan
it's
complete.
it's really hard to get to go into glide on its own.
Fuel
So you'll want to keep that in mind if it doesn't go into glide, because it'll come up, it'll say like glide enabled, and it'll show a blue triangle. If it doesn't show that, start leveling off.
Fuel scooping complete.
Better safe than sorry, even if you miss. If for some reason you want to hit a specific spot on the planet, like I try to get on the daylight side of the planet just so I don't have to depend on my lights as much, or my lights and night vision as much.
Frame shift drive.
But yeah, if you're trying to hit a specific spot on the planet, like you'll want to put it on the horizon so that you can kind of level off towards it. So planetary landings if you plan on going that route, but
4,
just jumping
2,
into super cruise mode, jumping from system to, or from solar system to solar system. Those are the types of things you want to learn right off the bat. Like, don't worry about the more advanced functions of the ship until you get those basic things taken care of.
fuel scooping.
I'm getting more and more daring with my fuel scooping as I go along.
Fuel scooping complete.
Still really don't want to drop out though, this far away from the bubble. There's no space stations in this area. I checked. Of course, if I come across a friendly star carrier, I might be tempted to land on it and use some of their services. Maybe send some credits their way. They might actually be happy with me if I do that.
3, 2, 1.
It's one thing I don't plan on owning. I was looking at like how many credits it takes to maintain one. I'm like, that's a lot of gameplay hours. Unless you just get into a system where you get like where you can earn a lot from the star carriers. And they take a special type of fuel last I knew. Unless they decide to change that back to hydrogen. They take like tritium or something like that for their fuel. No, don't suck me in. Tops out at like 720
Fuel
something, I
scooping
think.
complete.
The heat management on this ship's good enough to where it doesn't overheat when you like top out your fuel scoop. I think I have like a 5B fuel scoop in this. The 5A's top out at like 800 something, I think.
Frame shift drive charging.
I'm using the 6 slot in this for something else. I can't remember what.
Four, 3, 2, 1. Engage. Fuel scooping.
And one thing you'll want to do too is play around with the settings, like even when you first start out. Some people don't start doing this until they get into like playing the game a lot more. Wow, this is like a really big star. So play around with the settings. There's some things you can do in the settings that the game's not set up by default. So I think the game uses the J button for the frame shift drive altogether. The frame shift drive actually has 2 modes. It has
Frame shift drive charging.
the super cruise mode, which is what I'm in now, and it's charging for the, what you might call it, for the hyperspace mode. So it's the same device on the ship. It does both of those things. So super cruise is faster than light travel. That's not point to point. Hyperspace is point to point, and the only time you can get like intercepted from hyperspace is called hyperdiction, I think, is if some of the alien races do it. I think the Thargoids are the main ones that do it. Because I saw like on stream, like Colo stream once, she
Fuel
got
scooping.
hyperdicted by Thargoids. And it's like, yeah, they can pull you out of it, but pirates can't. But while you're in super cruise mode, like what I'm in right now, that you can discover in super cruise mode. It's not point to point like hyperspace mode is. And it's like while you're in super cruise mode, pirates can pull you out, police officers can pull you out, like any other human can pull you out, like other players can pull you out if they have a frame shift drive or interdictor equipped on their ship, they can pull you out. And typically it does like a mini game where it gives you like escape points and you have to kind of like fight to go towards the escape points, and it has you do like different motions like that. And it's like, yeah, it's a little mini game if you just want to give up and drop out without risking damaging your ship. Because if you lose the mini game and your ship doesn't emergency drop out, it's like, then it takes whole damage and it could damage some of the modules too. But if you just want to give up and drop out and fight the person and take your chances that way, you can just drop your throttle like that and it'll drop the interdiction and it'll drop you out with that person trying to interdict you. It's essentially like giving up on the interdiction if you're an interdiction victim.
4, 3, 2, 1, engage.
But yeah, I tried combat with other players, and I'm not good at. Not good at all. And like, I even tried buying a fighter ship, and I just suck so bad at it. I'm like, I'm just selling it. Like, I can't do this. But the AI pirates so far, like, I've been able to chase them off of the heat seekers. Because it seems like they have weaker shields than what players typically equip their ships with.
Fuel scooping complete.
But other players seem to be able to have shields that can shrug off the heat seekers, or they seem to have the ability to dodge the flares or whatever, the point defense, to be able to thwart off the heat seekers at the very least, enough to be able to do serious damage to me, if not destroy me. So I got a really low combat rank. Most of my ranks in with the Explorer stuff. Explorer, I think I got a little bit of trades rank. Not too much, because I typically don't do it that much. It's mainly from the trades missions you do at the beginning of the game. Last I knew, passenger missions are more lucrative than like trading missions. Where you make your money doing trading, those non-mission trading. So they're not missions you get at like a starport. So like typically you can do a research on like a market connector. Like I just use a standard like community market connector. It connects to a few of the networks. And essentially you can do some comparison, like how much, it's kind of like stock trading. So like bases where you can buy stuff for cheap, and then bases where you can sell it like for more credits. So you buy the stuff at a base where it's cheap, then you fly it to a base where you can sell it for a high amount of credits, and that's where you make your money trading. But missions usually don't nut you as much as they're worth.
Frameshift drive charging.
And sometimes with missions you get chased by scripted pirates, and it becomes a pain. Like if you have valuable cargo specifically, like pirates will go after you. Like it doesn't matter if you're on a mission or not. Especially when you're in the bubble. Like I don't think, that seemed to be going faster. So I don't think I've been bothered by pirates much at all, if any at all, outside of the bubble. But when you get inside of at least one of the bubbles, like I would get bothered at like the bubble around Lost and those systems, trying to do that mission. So you pretty much have to kidnap people in the occupied escape pods. You have to bring them to the
Fuel
engineer.
scooping complete.
So even doing that, like, I go to the occupied escape pods and like try to fly them to this engineer, I'd have pirates going after me. But luckily I was able to pass through the mini game,
Frameshift drive charging.
like without having to lose to the pirates. So I didn't have to fight them. So I don't know if the pirates round loss are stronger than the ones in your typical bubble,
4,
which is like the systems like
2,
Robigo and all that.
engage.
So it's like, yeah. Wow, that was a really small jump. Probably a neutron star or something. No?
Fuel scooping. Fuel scooping complete.
Yeah. Knew it. Guess they're working on an update in this too, where you can actually get out of the ship and walk. That's going to be interesting, but so it'll make this game more like No Man's Sky or Star Trek.
Frameshift drive
But
charging.
don't know how that mechanic will compare to like either of the two. But it'll definitely be interesting. Currently, as far as I'm aware, I don't think they released that expansion yet.
3, 2, 1.
But currently there's no mechanism in the game, unless I knew to, where you can actually get out of the ship other than the SRVs. But the SRVs, you essentially drive a little go-kart around. Getting the materials that way off the planet is a little bit easier than mining.
Fuel scooping. Fuel scooping complete.
About the system, I don't really see anything on the map, so I was just wondering if there's... 11.
Frameshift drive
Just
charging.
trying to see how many light years I can crunch in a short period of time.
Four, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
Yeah, my live streams seem to get more views like after I end them and the recordings go up. I only have like 3 subscribers as I make this live stream here.
Fuel scooping.
Not really active enough to warrant having more though.
Fuel scooping complete.
You can see like the line of like the star density as I'm like starting to approach where you get less star density. Yeah, these blue stars almost dropped there. Yeah, those blue stars like are huge trying to fly around them.
Frameshift drive charging.
So she said. Just had to.
4, 3, 2,
Yes, Michael Scott. And anyone who doesn't get that reference, you don't watch The Office, and therefore you're not human. Like, I'm not like a huge Office fan, but I do watch it from time to time.
Fuel
752,
scooping
that's the top out, or top out is 752. I forgot the magic number in my fuel scoop top out. And the bigger the fuel scoop you can get on a ship
Frameshift drive
for
charging.
exploration, the better. Because, like, I was trying to explore at first like a 2B fuel scoop, and it's like it was really slow. Like, it would top out like 152 or something like that.
2, 1, engage.
For this ship that had about half the capacity, but it still took a long time to fill. And it's like they're spending more time scooping stars than you are jumping. Which I might still be doing now, but it's more bearable now than it would be if I had
System scan.
a second
complete.
class
Fuel scooping.
fuel scoop.
Fuel scooping complete.
Yeah, you have to create some distance with the star. This is another thing about maneuvering that people should get used to early on
Frameshift drive charging.
in playing the game, is maneuvering around stars and planets. That's one thing you'll use a lot more than docking if you're going to be exploring.
3, 2,
So exploring, that's the two main things. And Super Cruise, maneuvering around planetary bodies, we'll call them, encompass both stars and planets. And landing on planets or mining, depending on which route you choose to go, or both if you plan on
system scan complete.
equipping your ship with both, and just using them as tools in an arsenal, just using whichever one's better, or whichever one you have the resources for. Because the one downside to landing on the planets is you actually have to maintain your SRVs by collecting resources for them. So in your 4 panel, you have, I forgot how to switch tabs. So you have, under inventory, I think. Yeah, synthesis. So you can go through, and if you have the materials, you can synthesize this stuff. So this is where you synthesize limpets. So you hit spacebar on one, and it's like it takes this amount of resources to make limpets. But AFM refill, that's like your auto field maintenance unit. So when that runs low on units, you can use that to refill. So you can make everything from heat sinks to that. But you have SRV repair and SRV refuel. So you need to have oh, that might be because I don't have an SRV that requires repair or fuel. So if your SRV is low on ammo, needs to repair or needs to be refueled, you'll have the option to synthesize that stuff for them. Because I have the one right now. So I think when the stuff gets below a certain threshold, that's when you can synthesize the stuff for it, and not below those thresholds and anything as far as yet.
Frameshift drive charging.
I always kind of wanted to see if I could fly from system to system without jumping. But I just don't feel like waiting for hours.
3, 2, 1. Engage.
Yeah, synthesis is one of the more
System
advanced
scan
things you want
complete.
to learn how to do
Fuel scooping.
after you've learned like your maneuvering stuff. So it'll take you like a day or two to learn maneuvering. If it takes you longer than that, that's
Fuel
fine.
scooping
You
complete.
learn at your own pace. Like that has just been my experience, like so far as the maneuvering, learning how to do that, in like at most 2 or 3 days. Nothing wrong with taking longer, but it's like learn that and then start learning the functions of your ship. And just find something that you're interested in learning more about, and then focus on that one thing for a little while. If you try to learn everything all at once, you're going to overwhelm yourself. It's like that with learning anything. Like, I'm a computer technician,
3,
and people are like, how do you know so much about computers? It's like, it's mainly project-based learning, so it's like, I started out as like upgrading my family's computer to be able to play games on it. That's how I started out. Like, my family's computer, they had Dell Dimension 4300. It shipped with a ATI or ATI Rage 128, and that wasn't the megabytes. It was like a 128-bit pipeline, but that's how it got its
fuel
name.
scooping complete.
The memory on the card is only 16 megabits. So after playing for a while, like me and my brother would actually play Black Hawk Down on that computer, and like I kind of wanted better graphics on that after a while. This was like after 3 or 4 years, and there's a game that
Frameshift drive charging.
one of my friends had that I wanted to play. It was like a Medal of Honor game. I forgot which one it was. So he's like,
4,
he let me borrow the CD because there's no DRM on it. And I know this is bad, it's copyright infringement. Let me borrow the CD, and it's like the computer won't play it. The video card wasn't good enough. So I a trip to Best Buy, spent some allowance money and bought an NVIDIA GeForce 6800, I think it was. And that was like a legit 128 megabyte memory card. It's like, that card actually worked awesome in that computer, even though the power supply wasn't big enough to be able to handle it.
fuel scooping complete.
It worked. And it worked for a while. It's like, played a lot of Black Hawk Down and Medal of Honor on that card. And a computer that was almost 50, had a power supply that was almost 50 watts below the recommendation of the
Frameshift
video
drive
card.
charging.
And it was like a Pentium 4, so the computer is like way underpowered in every other aspect. But it did work for a while.
4,
Next computer I had was one that I built myself. It was a AMD Athlon 3500, or Athlon 64 3500. Had 2 gigs of RAM, and it had a NVIDIA GeForce 7600 GT. I think that was either also 128 mega or
fuel scooping.
megabytes of memory. I'm not sure what they use for video cards. Like, there's 8 bits in a byte, so there is a
Fuel scooping
difference
complete.
there. Not entirely sure what the measurement is a video card. So I know at internet they use bits because as there's 8 bits in a byte, if they use bytes to advertise, it would be a lower number. So that's where they get people on the internet. They're like, oh, it's like, or, of course I like the 400 megabytes for instance, use that as an example. Oh, it's 400 megabits per second. Well, you do the math on that, that's going to equal about 25 megabytes per second, and people don't realize that they're 2 different measurements. So people will get upset, like, I subscribe to this 400 megabit internet and it's only downloading at 25 megabytes per second. It's like, that's why they advertise in bits, because that number is higher, while your typical download client's going to measure in bytes. So there are some that measure in bits, so like some torrent clients especially measure in bits, or give you the option to be able to measure it in bits. But yeah, video cards, like, that might have been a 256 meg card, the 7600 GT. Got quite a few Counter-Strike 1.6 and then later Counter-Strike Source gameplay hours into that. That was before Steam started keeping track, so that was actually a lot of my gameplay in those games. But my hours would probably be, if it logged those hours, would probably be into the 300s. But right now it only says I have like 150 hours in the Counter-Strike Source, because that was like later in my high school years when Steam started keeping track of your gameplay hours.
3, 2, 1, engage.
My third computer had a Athlon X2 5200. I think it was like 4 gigs of RAM. I later upgraded it to 8. And I'm on my 4th computer right now. I actually upgraded the video card on it not too long ago. So my processor currently is a Core i5 4690K. I have a RX 5700 on it right now. It started out life with a R9 270X. But a kind of funny story, at first I did have a
Frameshift drive charging.
what you would call it, an AMD FX 6300 in it. It lasted about a year and I had one of those liquid coolers. But I cheaped out on the liquid cooler. I got like some cheap Corsair H50.
3, 2,
And anyway, I was playing Grand Theft Auto on it. And all of a sudden I just hear this loud drip, 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 and realizing that I had liquid cooling in it, I reached right behind my computer right then and there once I realized what that noise was, and flipped the kill switch on the back of the power supply. That ended up saving my video card. So I opened the side up after I flipped the kill switch and gave it a little bit of time to discharge. So opened that up and started looking at stuff, and it was one of the fittings on the bottom of the radiator must have like started to come undone and started dripping. So it dripped out onto my video card. So after that I ordered like an air cooler. I'm still using it as a Cooler Master Hyper 212. I did replace the fan off of it because I was reading reviews and they're like, the cooler's good, the Cooler Master fan they put on it by default's crappy. So I ordered because I wanted to make this machine more quiet anyway, I ordered some Noctua fans for it. Because Noctua is a good company that makes fans. And
Fuel scooping.
so I put those on, and I actually ran that motherboard and processor for a couple more months. But I
Fuel
think
scooping complete.
because a lot of the liquid like seeped from the video card into the PCI Express slot more and got on some of the circuitry above the PCI Express slot. So not sure what all that does, but I don't think I got the PCI Express slot cleaned out enough. So like a month or two later, like I was playing Grand Theft Auto 5 again, all of a sudden the screen just goes black. And it's like I couldn't get anything to work on the motherboard. I tried pulling the processor off, putting it in another motherboard that was good. A friend of mine is running a FX8350 at the time. And it's like, yeah, the processor won't work. The RAM won't work either. So it's like, so it fried all three. So something on the motherboard went bad too, or it fried the processor and RAM too. So I contacted Corsair, even though that was their cheapest product that was prone to leaking at the time.
Fuel scooping.
Like, hey, what can you do? And Corsair actually sent a check out for like $290. Like, at least it's something. I mean, it doesn't pay for the entire rig.
Complete.
So I used that money to buy a motherboard, RAM, and Core i5 kit that was used. And that's why I'm running with what I'm running now.
Frameshift drive.
Because to get another FX 6300 motherboard brand new, it would have been along the lines of like $330 something dollars. I don't feel like spending that much more.
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
I kind of wanted to give Intel a try anyway, because it's like I'd never really had an Intel computer other than the Pentium 4 my family had. Actually, the Core i5 runs pretty nice, even though it's only a quad core, the one that I have. So it's a good processor for being a quad core.
Fuel scooping.
Of course, most of the computers we use at work are Core i5s.
Fuel scooping complete.
Supervisors who make purchasing decisions, like they don't want to spend a whole lot of money on the computers, but they do upgrade them a little bit when given the options. So they go to the Core i5s, and on the laptops, if it's available, they'll go with the backlit keyboard on top of that, and sometimes more RAM too. So,
Frameshift drive charging.
because I think when you get into the i5s is when you start getting the V Pro available. Like, I don't think the i3s have V Pro on them. That gives you a bit more management ability. It's actually
Engage.
quite nice to have those features.
Fuel scooping. Fuel scooping complete.
Of course, a lot of the V Pro features are inactive right now because Intel kind of shut them down because of some of their security issues. Which is actually good. Like, they're saying that customer security means more than convenience,
Frameshift drive
which is a good thing. Oh, an hour 25 in.
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
No, that's one you can't fuel scoop, so, so I get to where I can fly around it easier. These brown dwarfs are, don't let the name fool you, they actually are pretty big stars. You know, since this was on the edge of it,
Frameshift drive charging.
or of my viewpoint on it, I'm like, yeah, I kind of wanted to face away where it'd be the shortest ride around it.
Four, three, two, one. Engage.
Getting into the foam now. Ah,
Fuel scooping.
trying to go between the flares a little bit here. The flares make you drop, so if you actually fly into an arc of a flare, it'll drop you out of Super Cruise.
Fuel scooping complete.
Kind of don't want that. Because then you have to fly out of what's called the exclusion zone. That's like the zone around the star where you can't engage your frame shift drive. Once you get into that area, you have to kind of boost out of that area, or out of the exclusion zone, so you have to point away from the star and just boost. And it takes a while sometimes.
Frameshift drive charging.
And it can do a lot of hull damage sometimes. Like I'm still at 100% on my hull. So I treat her delicately.
4, 3,
But it's like, yeah.
1. Engage.
Because I've had a drop out around the star drop me like all the way down to like 60% or something. Not a single neutron star though. Might have to start using the neutron star router again.
Fuel scooping.
Talk about the exclusion zone while I fly straight into it.
Fuel scooping complete.
So right now on the bottom left there, or it's actually the top left of the radar, you see there's that blue circle or filled in circle on a smaller radar. That's your reference for your Corsair lining up to your target. So because this star system is my target, you can see that move and it lines right up. If the circle's not filled in, it means you're facing away from it. So that means you have to point it straight up or straight down until
Frameshift drive charging.
it fills in. Little fun fact, that's one of the things I'm looking at when I'm maneuvering like that. That's one of the things you should learn as you're starting the game.
4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
So yeah, what that little radar does, I'm pointing to it like you can see. Yeah, sometimes I can be dumb. So that little one, I think it's like your X and Y
Fuel
axis,
scooping.
according to your viewpoint. The bigger radar is like if you need to see around you more. and that does some Z-axis stuff too. So you see that line there where that star is? That means the star's above me. And as it's pulling back, that means it's going to be more behind me. So when it turns blue, means I'm far away enough from the exclusion zone to maneuver around it. That's all that means. I am starting to head towards a nebula though, so that's interesting. Wondering what nebula is. Some nebulas are populated, some aren't, so it's like if nebulas haven't been discovered hardly at all, they're not going to be populated. Once they get discovered to the point where the game starts setting up the population for it. Or what am I doing?
Frameshift drive charging.
It's like, yeah, then there will actually be like starports and stuff in those nebula systems.
2, 1, engage.
It's one of the things, like if your ship's on its last leg and you for some reason can't scavenge the stuff you need to make limpets or AFMU units, depending on how you have to repair your ship.
Fuel scooping.
Like last ditch effort, and you don't feel like going online and looking
Fuel
it up
scooping complete.
to see where your nearest port is. Because some people say that's cheating. So if you're one of those people, you don't want to cheat and look it up online where your nearest starport is. Then look for a nebula on the map. I could probably show a nebula, for example. I was thinking about ending the stream anyway.
Frameshift drive charging.
So nebulas are where you get those darker clouds and they show up on the map like that too. Head towards your nearest nebula. There's a chance there could be population enough there to have starports.
Engage.
Just a little fun fact or a little hint if you're in trouble. That's where you could probably find help. I can't guarantee it because, yeah, not all nebulas are populated.
System scan complete.
But it's something to consider if you're really desperate for help. I just tried not to put myself in those situations. So, like, I'm not as daring as some commanders are. I like to use like a lot of logic and be like, if that doesn't sound like a good idea, it probably isn't a good idea. It's just kind of where I'm at. I like to zero my throttle out. Okay. So you press 1 to go into that panel, and if you're in the 1 panel, if you press 1 again, it toggles out of it. That's how you use your ship's panel. So you got your first panel, second panel, that's where you go to view messages and stuff. Your third panel, that's where you view some of your surface landing functions. And if you have multiple like seats in your ship, you can invite people. I think I do have 2 seats. This is top and bottom though, so like you can't see the other seat from there. But I think you have to use a 2 panel to invite, I think. So yeah, you can find crew and then you can invite people to crew your ship. So they'll show up here in the third panel under you if they're on your ship too. But that's how you also access your scarabs. So once you land on a planet, you can go into this 3 panel here, and you can launch the scarab from here. Like you hit spacebar and you can hit deploy. But I can't deploy it, or At least I shouldn't deploy now. Yeah, it's not giving me the option, it's grayed out. But you can deploy your Scarab onto the surface of the planet using the 3 panel. Your 4 panel is where you manage your inventory and stuff. You can also manage your ship. You can use your WASD to kind of move around each panel. And to switch through the tabs, it's the Q and the E button. So I just switch those using the Q and the E. And then you can also toggle your external lights, your night vision, your beacon. What your beacon does, that makes it so that if you have people in your wing, those are like flight groups to where, like, if you have friends and you want to be like, hey, I want to fly together with this person, you can join a wing with them, and that allows for group flights. You can do nav locks too, so if you're in one system and your friend in the wing jumps to another system, just by flying behind them, it'll automatically turn on your frameshift drive and go to jump to that system if your ship has the same jump capability. The only time it won't do that is if your ship doesn't have enough of a light year jump to be able to do that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So you can change a lot of things in that. There's also one setting too that they say you should keep in mind. Oh yeah, you can also self-destruct your ship too if you, for some reason, want to do that. Oh, report crimes against me. Like, if you wanted to fight for yourself, or if you're doing highly illegal stuff, you don't want to get caught, you can turn that off too. So it's like, then you can control your modules, and this is where you actually repair stuff too. So my frameshift drive is like down 97%. I haven't done that many neutron star jumps. That's the main thing that's going to damage your frameshift drive. So you can fly into the jet cones of a neutron star and supercharge your frameshift drive to allow for longer jumps. That does about 0.5% of damage or something to your frameshift drive each time you do it. So if you're in a long journey to where you want to do that, like every so often, like throughout the course of the journey, you might get down to that 80% to where you have to repair your frameshift drive. So if you're equipped with an auto field maintenance unit, you can hit spacebar, and then you can hit repair. And you do have to shut down, so like for the frameshift drive, you have to drop out Super Cruise to be able to use a repair function. Weapons, you have to turn them off to be able to repair them. Shields, same thing, you gotta turn them off to be able to repair them. So like, yeah, a lot of your modules you have to turn them off during repair. But you can also use this panel to set fire groups. That's where, like, you have 1 and 2, so 1's left click, 2's right click. And you can have different fire groups, so you use like either the M or the N key to switch between your fire groups. It messed mine all up. What the heck? No, that's how I had it set. Okay. Someone is running their lawnmower. It's 10:51 at night here. But yeah, you also got your status here. Oh, and if you go all the way to the left, so you press Q until you get to that little home icon there. And this is where you get into the training and stuff, so you can do training. And this shows your ranks here too. So I'm like barely into the merchant rank trade rank, and I'm still in the harmless rank for the combat. For the explorer rank, I'm all the way up to ranger, so that's like 3 or 4 ranks above what you start out as. But yeah, those are your different panels of the ship. So all of your navigation is going to be done in like, this panel. I was just wondering if I made any progress, or if I didn't. Robigo. Down to 19,000 light years for Robigo. That means I can navigate directly to it now. So you have these panels up here in your universe map, or galaxy map. So this is your route planning tab here. That search bar, it pretty much works like the search bar at the top of your Google Maps app. You can type in the system name that you want to navigate to. Then when it highlights it here, you can use these buttons. So the second button, that's a plot route button that plans out the jumps that you need to make to get to that system. The first one is to select, so if you're within 1 jump of a system, you can select it. So that's like one way you can, if you want to jump to a specific system, you can select it as long as it's within 1 jump of you. You can bookmark the location, or you can click here and access the system map for it, and what that allows you to do is it views like all the stuff that you discovered, or if you purchase navigational data on it too, it lets you use that. So you can be like, oh, there's a starport there. It's like, that's where you can make trades, you can get your ship repaired. One thing to keep in mind, and I got in trouble on this too, is when you select something, you also have tabs on it in the system map. So this doesn't give you that much useful information if you're trying to figure out how to trade, because it shows information for the entire system. But if you click the second tab that has lines, then it gives you information about the selected item. So when you go into a starport here, it gives you these facilities, and it tells you like what all you can do there. Occasionally, like once in a while, you'll come across one that does not have repair facilities, so you can't repair your ship there. So I've docked at one of those, and I'm like, oh crap, now I gotta like limp my ship to another one that you can repair. But the main thing is the shipyard, so if you're looking to buy a new ship, it's like that's where my Orca is docked currently. But it's like yeah, so if you want to buy a new ship, you need to look for one that has this shipyard facility. And like the crew lounge, that's for if you want to take on like passenger missions. That's you gotta do or go to a starport that has the crew lounge. There's like so many in this system. Oh, that's actually I forgot, those are the star carriers now, or whatever they're called. Quite a few people have them at this planet here. Wow. I didn't realize so many people would be into doing star carriers. But I'm probably going to sign off for the night for this stream. I'm an hour and 44 minutes into it. So yeah, that was real. So of course I don't think I had any viewers. No one commented. So maybe if I start doing these more often, maybe people will comment on them.